Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break down one of the most critical safety standards out there, HAZWOPER. It's basically the playbook for working in some of the most dangerous environments on the entire planet.
I mean, just take a look at this scene. It's pretty intense, right? These workers are dealing with who knows what, potentially life-threatening stuff. So the real question is, what kind of training, what kind of system lets a person walk into a situation like this and walk out safely at the end of the day?
Well, to answer that, we first have to really understand the why. We've got to get a clear picture of all the different ways things can go horribly wrong on a hazardous waste site. This is not your average 9-to-5 job.
Think about it. On one side, you've got these immediate, violent risks, things like explosions and chemical burns that can change your life in a split second. But then you've got the silent killers, asphyxiation from gases you can't even see, or toxic exposure that can lead to some really serious illnesses years and years down the road. The stakes really couldn't be any higher.
So when you're facing that level of risk, you need a serious, rock-solid plan. And that is exactly what OSHA created. It's a true blueprint for safety, designed to give workers a fighting chance out there.
And let's be clear, HAZWOPER isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's the law. It stands for Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response, and it is one of the most detailed and demanding standards OSHA has. It's the definitive guide for keeping workers safe on these front lines.
So how do you actually become a hazardous site worker? Well, it's not something you can just pick up over a weekend. It's a really rigorous process that's designed to forge a highly skilled and, maybe more importantly, a highly aware professional.
It all starts with this number right here, 40. That's a full work week spent in a classroom, completely away from the actual site, just learning the theory. This is the foundation. Everything from hazard recognition to toxicology and safety protocols, you learn all that before you even think about stepping foot near the danger.
But, theory can only get you so far. After those 40 hours in the classroom, you have to spend a minimum of 3 full days out in the field. This is where you put all that knowledge to the test, but you're doing it under the watchful eye of an experienced supervisor. So it's 40 hours of learning, 3 days of doing. And just so we're crystal clear, this is not optional for some people. If your job involves going into those contaminated zones for cleanup, for remediation, for containment, basically, if you're exposed to these substances, this 40+3 training is absolutely mandatory.
So what exactly are you learning in all that time? Well, a good way to think about it is that you're being issued a complete survival toolkit. And these aren't just abstract ideas. They are the practical, hands-on skills that are going to keep you safe day in and day out.
One of the very first things you learn is that a hazardous site isn't just chaos. It's actually a highly controlled environment, and it's meticulously broken down into these specific zones to manage and, crucially, contain the spread of contamination.
Let's break that down real quick. You've got the exclusion zone, or hot zone. That's where the work happens, right in the middle of all the bad stuff. Surrounding that, you have the warm zone, which is a critical buffer where all the decontamination happens. And then finally, there's the cold zone. That's the clean area for your command post, your equipment, all your support. Every single step you take is dictated by these boundaries.
Okay, the next tool in your kit is your armor. And having the right gear is, quite literally, the difference between life and death. You might be in a basic Level D work uniform for a low-risk job, or you could be in a fully encapsulated Level A suit. I mean, think astronaut gear, but for a chemical spill, if you're dealing with something truly nasty. The site assessment tells you what armor you need. There is absolutely no room for guesswork here.
And what happens when you're done for the day? Well, getting out is just as complicated as getting in. This flowchart here shows that decontamination isn't just, a quick rinse with a hose. It is a meticulous, step-by-step procedure to make sure you don't carry any of those hazards home with you.
So what's the goal of all this complexity? It's actually really simple. Nothing contaminated ever leaves the hot zone. Period. Every single procedure, from how you take off your gloves to where you set down your equipment, is laser-focused on that one non-negotiable rule.
Now, that initial 40-hour training is super intense, but safety isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. Hazards change, technology gets better, and honestly, skills can get rusty. That's why HAZWOPER is built around an ongoing commitment. And that commitment has a number, 8. Every single year, certified workers have to complete an 8-hour refresher course. This keeps their skills sharp, it gets them up to speed on new procedures, and it's what they need to maintain their certification. There's just no coasting in this line of work.
But here's the thing. Safety isn't a one-way street. The employer has a huge list of responsibilities, right? Providing training,
medical checkups, enforcing the plan. But the employee has just as critical a role, following the rules, using their gear the right way, and speaking up if something looks wrong. It's a partnership where both sides have to be completely all in.
And this is what happens when that partnership breaks down. This isn't some theoretical warning. It's based on things that have actually happened. A failure to train properly or a failure by a worker to follow the plan doesn't just end with a slap on the wrist. It leads to people getting seriously hurt and companies facing major consequences.
So, we've seen the hours, the rules, the procedures. The training is without a doubt tough and demanding, but it leaves us with one last thought. When you're dealing with invisible poisons, explosive materials, and things that can affect your health for the rest of your life, what's the real cost of getting it wrong?